Welcome back to the Blueprint to Ultra podcast with your hosts, Steve Epifano and Jeff Winchester. Listen, our goal with this podcast is to help you put together your own plan for your next Ultra. Now, we do that by interviewing a variety of guests from those at the back of the pack all the way to the front of the pack with the idea that they're going to share something from their personal experiences that will help you put together your own plan for your next Ultra. So that's why we call it Blueprint, and that's what we're here to try to help you do. Now, our guest today has been part of the ultra running world since 2023 when he hung out with Laz at the Strolling Gym 40 miler, which for a first-time ultra is a pretty cool race to begin with because there's not a better race director that you see in person than I think Laz of anybody that's out there. No offense to other race directors, but Laz is a creme de la creme. He's also a bit of a backyard fan, having run the Mid-State Mile a few times, and we're going to dig into that as well. He has highs out there and he has had lows in that race. And we're going to unpack both sides of that equation as we talk today. And he has also run a couple other backyard events. He's picked up the win at one of them and he got 104 miles at that race. And most recently, he has run the Lovit 100, where he got fourth place overall. And he personally believes that you shouldn't allow your circumstances to determine your effort, but to let your effort determine your circumstances. And his story is one of sobriety, faith, and gratitude. And we plan to dig into all of that in this episode as we get to know him a little bit better. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about Mid-State. We're going to talk about Lovit. And we're going to talk about probably a little bit of Cocodona, Steve. That is really just for you because we know you love the 200s and 250s and all the other above. But without further ado, please join us in welcoming Mr. Dylan Ledbetter to the show. Dylan, welcome to Blueprint Ultra.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, Jeff and Steve. It's a pleasure. It really is.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
We're excited to have you. Listen, so I've got some notes. I mentioned that before we even started going here in the recording as well. And to dive into this, listen, from what we've learned about you, you didn't do much running growing up at all. You were into wrestling and baseball, according to my notes. You joined the Army at 18, where you ran just a few miles, 5 to 6 miles, because basically when you're in the military, you are forced to run anyway. So that's your main exposure there. So if you could help us bridge this gap. You joined the Army at 18, you did this minimal running as well, and you didn't do anything really much prior to that other than just a normal sports and everything. So how did you get from that to showing up at the starting line at the Strolling Gym 40 miler?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a lot to unpack in just those couple of years. I got out of the Army in 2021. And then like most people that get out of the military, I'd been in 8.5 years. They swear off running. I'm not doing it anymore. And I've told people this before. I am done with running. I'll run maybe if I have to, but I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get buff and we'll just live our life that way. And that's kind of where I was at. And so I did that for a little while. I was going to school, things like that. I wasn't working. So I was like just getting some money on VA disability and then schooling through the post 9/11 GI Bill, things like that. My life was, I went from having purpose in the Army to not having purpose. And you don't really know what that feels like until you're in it. And it gets real rough and it gets real dark. So then you have to build a community because you don't have one. These people that you work close with, you don't see them anymore. It just goes that way. And so the bar scene is where I gravitated to, which I think most veterans do. I think most people, like when they hit some sort of depression, they gravitate to that scene. People are doing the same thing we are. I can drink and feel happy. I say feel happy because it doesn't actually make you happy. At least I believe that. And find a community in that of people that call themselves your friends. So I was doing that for a little while. My dog's over here. I'm sorry. Yeah, she's just hanging out. So I was doing that, and my buddy moved in that I was in the Army in Korea with, and I've told this story before. He was living with me for about a year or so. It comes around April 2022. He crashes his motorcycle overnight and never comes home, right? So he passes away. This is a good friend of mine. And I spoke at both of his funerals, and I was drinking the entire time. I did not know how to cope with this, right? I'd lost my mother in adolescence, but since then, there's been nothing like this come across my life. So I didn't know how to handle it besides going to the bottle, and that's where we were. That's where we ended up. And so I was doing that for about a year, just drinking. I started working, and I'm going through the motions. My life doesn't have purpose. You go to the gym when you can, and that's what it is. I lost my friend. I'm supposed to feel bad, right? It's okay that I drink. It's okay that I'm sad. Like I'm just grieving. When you use these excuses for what I think is a lot longer than what you need. And I'm not trying to shut down anybody's grief system. If you need 2 years, take 2 years. I understand. But I think that I probably was using things to cope a lot longer than necessary. It comes February, and somebody sent me David Goggins' book, The Can't Hurt Me, or I found it somewhere. I didn't know really. You knew about Goggins, right? You're seeing the videos. Everybody sees him. It doesn't matter. He's yelling. He's running. You're nothing, this and that. It's funny. It's motivational. Okay. But then somebody said, you should read this book. And I'm like, okay, like I'll listen to it. Throw it on Audible. I'll listen to it.
Mm.
We come across the 4x4x48. It's his challenge, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. For people that don't know, we were supposed to do this in Korea, me and my buddy and a few other people, my buddy that passed away. So at this moment, this was like a calling. I also didn't have faith at this time, so I can't really explain what the calling was, but this was a calling to do this for my friend. So if I'm going to do 48 miles in 2 days, I'm going to need to train a little bit. So that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to run. I ran 50 miles the first week because there was like a little challenge on Facebook. If you run 50 miles in a month, you raise money. If you guys ever seen the little meters that like fill up, $200. And I'm like, I can do it in a week. And I struggled through it, got it done, like just barely, right? 7 miles a day, which now seems, I don't know. It's not nothing, but we've done more. But I got that done. And then I'm like, this is interesting. Running is helping me get through things that I didn't know it was going to get me through. And it was more just the discipline was starting to drive me to have a healthier lifestyle. And I call it like stacking small wins or healthy habits. And once you start doing one healthy thing, for some reason, it seems to you start doing more and more healthy things. So the running started, I kind of start dialing back on the drinking a little bit. I'm trying to eat healthier. And I'm like, I'm going to do a half marathon. So St. Patrick's Day comes around March 17th. So I've been running for about a month, maybe less. And I run a half marathon. Did okay. I think I ran like an 8:02 average or 8:04 average, like mile pace. So not bad. But I think that's just like a little bit of athleticism, just a little bit. And then a month later, I run the rock and roll marathon. And that's where I found out that you can't grit through this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I found out at mile 18, there's a hill on that rock and roll Nashville marathon at mile 18. And it broke me right off. And I pretty much just struggled to not walk. That was the new goal after mile 18. It was like sub 4 hours. I had some goals. I think I ran a 4:02. But the last 6 to 8 miles were just absolutely miserable pain that I never knew existed. I got done, like my girlfriend at the time had to pick me up. Like she wasn't even supposed to pick. I actually think we might have been broken up. Like I think we might have been broken up, but like I called her anyways because I could barely walk. Like my knees and my hip flexors had hurt so bad from this effort that I didn't put training into really. And I was like, I can do it anyways. I did the half marathon. What's doing it twice? So it's a big deal. And so she picks me up, but something about that pain excited me. It was new and we got through it. That's the big deal. And this is what I tell a lot of is like, just keep moving forward. Because if you just quit, I don't know if I ever become an ultra runner, right? Because you quit on it and you don't get to feel the excitement and the gratitude of moving through the struggle, of choosing the pain, choosing the suffering and what that does for you mentally afterwards. So I run that marathon. And this is where you're a little off base here, Jeff, because I was supposed to run the 40 miler at Strolling Gym after the marathon, right? Because we're talking, this is like 2 weeks later is gym. And I broke myself off. So I busted down. I emailed Steve Durbin and I was like, hey, like I'm going to have to pull out of the 40. Can I run the half marathon? I'm like, that's it. I can nail that. So I actually didn't run the 40. I got the environment of ultra,
That
right?
is weak, man.
It was. No, 100%.
Yeah, we're hanging up, dude. You ruined my entire intro.
A little bit.
That sucks.
A little bit,
I'm
but
just kidding.
At least you got to hang out with Laz a little bit.
Okay, you still saw him.
I did get to see him, but I just wanted to make sure that was straight, so nobody thinks, hey, they go in there. No, it was the 13.1. This guy's a fraud. You know what I mean? So no, but so I ran the 13.1, which they don't offer there anymore. It's only the 40. But I got the experience of the people, right? The ladies dressed a horse and like you've got all ages here. You've got the OGs there that like have bib number 1 and they're like 70 something with 27 Strolling Gym finishes. You're like, dude, that's nuts. What is this? And everybody's humble. Everybody's nice. There's 100 people just surrounding this little town. It's just such a weird thing compared to a marathon start line or a half marathon start line. Like it's more chill. There's guys doing fireball shots in the parking lot. You're like, what is this thing? But it was cool. And so I run that and that was fun. And that's when I find out I see a trailer come across for the documentary Just 1 Mile, which is Chad Mile. And I'm like, what is this? This thing looks pretty cool. It's about 4 weeks away. And you could still sign up then 4 weeks out, right? Because the documentary hadn't dropped. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna try this out. It's only an hour down the road. Like this seems pretty cool. This Navy SEAL, he's good at it, blah, blah, blah. And I start watching his podcast, and this is where my faith comes in. Chad, if anybody doesn't know 3 of 7 Project, he's very faith forward. If you think we could say Goggins is like motivation forward, like in your face, Chad's like in your face faith, and that's what I tell people. And it can be, you have to be ready for it. It's a lot. But I think that in my moment, in my journey, that's the exact type of mess I needed it to come across in that package. I always thought of church and faith as grannies smiling, and I think they're fake smiling, coming up to hug you. You're great, honey. That's what I saw as faith and Christianity. And then you have somebody like Chad with a beard that's running ultras. That's, if you don't have faith, what are you doing with your life? You know what I mean? And it's I needed that. And so it took me some time. I was not really listening to the faith message on 3 of 7. I was ignoring it and taking the ultra stuff only, selfishly. And eventually he pretty much talked me into it until I couldn't deny the fact that I needed faith to move forward in my life. And so just a couple nights before mid-state, like I pronounced just myself in my bedroom. It's just me and my dog, and pronounced my life to Christ, which I still tell people, I still think I did that a little bit selfishly to do well in the race, a little bit, and I think that sometimes people pray a little selfishly, and I think it's a human thing that we do. We're sinners. We aren't perfect. And sometimes you're going to pray a little bit for yourself. But I go to the race, run 50 miles out there. And that was my first technical ultra. And it was surprising for these people because I'm telling them I've only been running 5 months or so, stuff like that. They don't know how, like over a 50K, and they're calling me the cornhole guy. I have a cornhole bag company. So people had found this out throughout the loops and things like this. So that's bridging the gap from me getting out of the Army, swearing off running forever in about July 2021 to running my first ultra in June 2023.
So where are you at this point in June of 2023 with your sobriety?
Nowhere close.
Yes.
Nowhere.
I was like, you're not sober at this point, so you still had a profession of faith, but you were still struggling with alcohol at that point.
Yes. And it's funny because when you're saying struggling with alcohol, if I look at it now, I'd say absolutely. But you look at
Yeah.
it then, I'm like, oh, I'm just a social drinker. But I was having 2 or 3 beers and a couple of whiskeys probably 4 days a week, and then on the weekends turning up. So it's like I was a chronic drinker for sure. But like when you're 28, 29 years old, you're like, I've done worse. I've been in worse positions. It's not that bad. But yeah, it was full. We were still in it.
And then as you started to come out of drinking, you were still now, because you're numbing your pain. You're numbing the pain of the loss of your friend, the loss of your mom in your childhood when you were a teenager. Like, how did you begin to experience life by removing that numbing agent, if you will?
A lot of it was faith-based. A lot of it was getting into the word. In the first year of my faith, like I didn't really read a lot of scripture. It was getting sent to me because I was really professing my faith, but I wasn't practicing my faith. I was doing some praying, but I wasn't really reading the word. But then like I started to, especially when I started to dial back on the alcohol, like I had to learn how to cope with a lot of things because the running was bringing out my past, the loss of my mother, her drug addiction, things that I'd went through, relationships that I'd messed up a lot of the time is what it would go through my mind when I ran. And it didn't matter if I had music or a podcast on. My mind could overtake all that stuff, right? I could forget 6 songs in a row because I was thinking about this time that I did something wrong to my ex-girlfriend and she broke up with me. And this is coming through, but the running was allowing me to digest it and organize it and understand why I did it and then how to avoid it in the future. Because beforehand, I think that the only time I would think about those bad times was when I was drinking, right? And then I would get sad and upset, right? And pretty much drink until you're almost just ready to go to bed and then go to sleep and then wake up the next day, deal with the hangover and forget about everything. So now to bridge the gap, it was happening running for sure, right? Like I was dealing with it while I ran, and a little bit of that was punishment running, right? Which I think a lot of people start out doing is I'm running to punish myself for maybe things you did to yourself, maybe things that happened to you externally that you really had no control of, but have impacted your life negatively. And like, maybe I can run and put myself through this pain to help me out. It's not a healthy thing to do if you stay in it. But I think that if you can work through it, use it, I think that it has to happen a little bit. At least it did for me, is I had to work through it. I had to punish myself a little bit and to understand why I did things. And then that's when I started to cope with it in that way, and then coupled it with faith, with getting into the church, took me about a year to go to the church too. I didn't I didn't trust the church system, which I think that people are okay to do that. I understand. Have questions. Make sure you ask questions of your church, things like this, and then get into the word. So I was coupling the running therapy along with getting into the word and understanding why I'm here and what my purpose is. And then that really allowed me to step back from alcohol. It really allowed me to cope with things myself and build that muscle that alcohol never allowed me to build. It's like working out a new thing that you never had. You never even knew you had to build this muscle. Like you didn't even know it existed because alcohol just held it down. But then when you go through it healthily, even when I was drinking, right, because I'm drinking less, but I'm building this thing that I didn't know anything about, like I said in that first marathon, and I was still drinking. I drank that day, as most people do. You get the free beer ticket and things like that. But I had to build that muscle on my own, and I started to enjoy building that muscle on my own. And I think this lady, Megan Mincer, she calls it the sober muscle. And it's also used like when you say no to alcohol. Every time you say no, and this happens before you get sober, to people that are like just starting to wean off or something. Every time you decide not to drink at the social gathering for maybe the first time, like that's building that muscle. So that's really what I was doing to overtake what the drinking was doing. And I was also getting a lot of external negativity. My friends from high school, even my family, is not understanding why I'm making this change. They've drank with me since I was 14 years old. I'm now 28, 29, and making what they think is a rash decision. I'll call it a rash decision too. Like I'm okay with calling it that. But I'm saying this is going to be forever once I got 30 days in. Because I said it first, I'm just going to quit for 60 days. I want to see the physical effects. I want to see how good can I be 2 months off of alcohol. And then I was 30 days in and I realized that I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want it anymore. And that's when I was like, I'm done for good.
I think
That's
that's great.
fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just had you mentioned that and some people do the punishment running, and a lot of it was that you were going back through some of the things that you had done. When you finished that and when you worked through that, were you able to forgive yourself for those things that you've done and understand them and work through them?
Yeah, I think that understanding is the big thing, and forgiveness is the best word for it, right? Because you don't want to make excuses for, oh, because I was drinking or because I didn't know the faith is the reason I did that. It's forgiving yourself, like truly forgiving yourself that, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not ever going to be perfect. Understanding that I made mistakes then, and I'm going to make mistakes in the future, and being okay. Like I think part of forgiving yourself is knowing that you're gonna have to do it again and again and again forever. And some people don't realize that. It's like, oh, once I forgive myself for all the bad stuff I did in my past, I'm clean now. The reality is we're never clean, and then we're gonna wake up and be sinners tomorrow and do it over and over again. And then me personally, I will have to repent for those things on each day or in the moments that these things occur. And that's the reality of faith. But those things are what gives your mind peace. You become a different person when you start to realize and forgive yourself on the spot and repent. And doing that stuff on the spot, it seems a little bit absurd. But if I was to say a cuss word, immediately I feel conviction, and then I repent in my mind that I've used my tongue for something that I shouldn't have. You know what I mean? And that brings me peace. And it also makes me understand that I've changed as a person completely. Because in the military, my mouth was very bad. And this is indoctrinated almost, right? And people would tell me when I come home on leave for 2 weeks, you cuss like a sailor. They would say it. And I'm like, that's just what we do. That's just who I am, which isn't true. It's just your environment shapes you so much. And like we're talking about running and ultra running was starting to shape me in a different direction where the people were kind. I needed to learn how to be kind, and faith was teaching me how to be kind, and those people were kind. So I removed myself from a community that is hard nosed and a little vulgar. And I'm not saying they're bad people. It's just what the community is to another community. And I had to learn how to adapt myself to that community.
I think you've got a really engaging story. And I think for those who are trying to make sense of their own running, their own faith, their own whatever in this, is that you demonstrate the truth of the matter is that for those who do have faith, they do recognize that they aren't instantaneously changed, even though sometimes they are sold that type of idea. And I think that's the critical thing. And if I make it just, if I may, even about running, it's like a lot of people think they can start running and all of a sudden be a great runner and show up at a marathon and die around mile 18 like Dylan did. we do this in all aspects of our life. It's not just faith, right? It's in anything that we do. Is sometimes we oversell ourselves and overthink that things are going to be just so drastically different. So I want to take this conversation of faith and take this conversation of mid-state and even in your sobriety, because that even correlates or not correlates, it threads through your journey of mid-state as well. And so mid-state is one of the races that you started with. For those who don't know anything about the race, I'm going to let you describe it in just a second, but it's held in Tennessee, if I recall correctly. It's called the Mid-State Mile. It is a 1 mile, roughly, loop course that you get 20 minutes to complete. It's got 340 feet of elevation gain per loop, it's a lot. And the reason it's a lot is because this is a last man standing event. Everybody starts and stops each lap. You get 20 minutes to finish. And Steve and I were trying to remember, we were trying to figure out from the website again, is it still the case that for the first 12 hours you cannot use poles? Or it used to be one of the rules, we think, for that race. Or maybe that's the Tennessee Mile, could be their 40-hour event, one of those. But we believe that there's a rule about you can't use poles for the first 12 hours. And I believe in the Mid-State Mile, they give you a break every 12 to 14 hours as well. So we're going to talk about all that. And the reason we want to talk about it is because you have had highs and you have had lows in the race. And first off, let me ask you this question. Did I describe the course correctly?
Yeah, really close, and I know it well. I call Mid-State my home race, right? It was my first ultra. It's an hour away from me in Franklin, Tennessee. John and Becca are like family. I could call Becca for any advice that I needed right now on the spot. John has put faith, like he was the first person last year to say I might have a good race. And my past finishes were 17th and 21st. And this guy goes out on a limb and says, I think Dylan might have a good year. And so I love those people to death. Yeah, the course, 340 feet of elevation gain. It's 2 hills. It's a figure 8 loop. So the first one's about 200 feet of elevation gain. The up isn't bad, folks. I'm telling you, it's the down. The down is what kills everybody. And it's just a lot of beating on your joints and your quads and things like this. So you go up, you come across, you come down, then you go up the other hill, which is about 140-ish, and then you come back down the other side and you're finished up. You are correct on 12 hours, no poles. Every 12 hours intermission. So that's a 20-minute break every 12 hours. You do whatever you want in that time. So in reality, it could be longer than that. Usually you'll run that loop before at about a 15 or a 16, which, folks, that's fast for this loop. And so you have about 24 to 25 minutes of time. And usually that's where you're laying. If I was to suggest anything, lay down. You're not going to get sleep any other time in this race. There's no opportunity for that. So you lay down, have your crew change out your shoes and socks and stuff like that. Also, another rule of the race, no headphones. So that's something that sometimes surprises people. I love it. You start and you're so close. It's 1 mile. Like until it gets down to 10 or less, you're able to have conversations really the whole time if you want to. But I like the no headphones aspect. Becca wants everybody to get to know each other. And now, even this last year, in my 3rd year, I felt like I was a veteran that had to carry what you could call like the Mid-State spirit through the race. What is that? What is this community that makes up Mid-State? Everybody that goes there, they come back with a very profound thoughts on what it is and what happens to them out there. No matter how many loops they've ran, something happens in that 1 mile loop with people. And I think a lot of that is because the veterans that taught me what the community is, and then I think have passed it on to me. And then now I feel sometimes I have to pass that torch and continue to spread that love out there. But yeah,
I don't want to get past this too far again, because the hills, the elevation is the pain of this race. So a lot of people do a backyard race and they think in themselves, I think I can get maybe 100 miles in it. If you do 100 miles at Mid-State, you're looking at 34,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. That's insanity.
Crazy.
When you think about a 1 mile loop course. And so just keep that in the back of your minds, everybody, because now, Dylan, you had your lowest moment at Mid-State year 2 and your highest moment at Mid-State year 3. So at Mid-State year 2, what went wrong? Why'd you suck so bad? It was your second time there.
Yeah, I'd say no. That I love that you said it. Say it how it is. It's true. It was bad. And if you look at that race, there were a lot of poor performances. To be honest, it was really
nope. It's not about other people.
Okay, fine. Fine. I won't even talk about them. But I think that the fallacy came across that I'd done enough to think that I could grit through a race. Okay. And I think this happens very easily in people's first couple of years of ultras. I think that because I ran Mid-State, I did some other things. I did okay at Tennessee Mile, I think, but I wasn't really training, and I was still drinking quite a bit, because we're talking through 2023 and then the front half of 2024. I'm trying to make life changes. They're not really happening yet. My training's not there, but I think I can get through it. If my parents throw a barbecue the week before, like my mind says, I'll just have a couple of White Claws and we'll be okay, or whatever they were. They were some sort of seltzer. It's like I'm not going to drink beer or hard liquor because that would be too much. I end up getting like nearly blacked out drunk 1 week before mid-state. So to think that and still thought that I was going to do well. This is how disproportionate my mind was to what alcohol can do to a performance. I had no idea because I've been drinking through this whole thing. And like we talked about, I had a 100-mile race where I was the first place male in July 2023. I did decent at mid-state in my first year. Like I was getting through these things while drinking. I wasn't optimal, but I was getting through them and doing okay just off of athleticism and grit. So why wouldn't this be any different? I just moved the extreme from a couple weeks out to the week out. We'll be fine. You have 4 days to hydrate. That's what they say. And I would say that is the reason it went so bad. I mean, being almost blackout drunk, putting that much alcohol into your system 1 week prior to a race that then the heat of Tennessee spiked to its highest that weekend. So everything that could go wrong to somebody who drinks, like it went wrong. And my race went terrible. And I had issues the entire time. And I was dehydrated. I was sick. And I'd never been sick in a race before. And I wasn't in it. I thought that I could grit through. I thought that I was some tough guy. And I was putting all these mantras all over the place. And I wasn't living them. Now, the things that I say I live. And that changed a lot too. Because there was years I spent putting motivational things out. And I believed them, right? In my head, I believed them. But I didn't live them. And that's a big difference. You can say a lot of stuff, but until you're like acting it out, you're never going to apply that thing. So if you say things and actually apply them, I tell my girlfriend this all the time that like, cause I'll give her advice on something. I'm like, okay, I got to take that advice too. Right. She's asking me something like, I wish I could take more. I'm a good speaker, but sometimes like I'm not applying the things that I'm literally saying to others. And I like that I've noticed that that's an issue. They're like, hey, if I apply these things, like I'm telling these people to do this, if I do it too, I'm going to see the same benefits that I'm telling them they're going to see. Why aren't we doing this? So I think that came to a head. The things I'd been saying now were on the course confronting me in a way that like, you can't climb this mountain anymore. You know what I mean? We're going to shut you down. It's time for you to realize that you have to make a real change and apply and live by the things you're saying, you know? And I think that was the turning point. And it took me about 2 months after that before I got sober, but we can wait on that if you want. But I think that was a huge turning point in my life completely, where I understood that a change had to be made if I wanted to be good at this thing. I could also go and drink and go back to the gym and not do anything. That's option two. And that's there every day, you know, but I didn't want that option. Like I didn't want that route. I'd put effort into this. These people loved me. I had people supporting me, and I put effort into this, and it was giving me something great for my mental space. And if I was going to throw it away because I couldn't give up alcohol, that seemed like a no-brainer to me. And that's where I took about 60 days, like I said, to make a decision of be like, okay, I'm going to give it up for 60 days and just see what happens. Cause I need to know right now. And if nothing happens, then okay, we'll be fine. I've been fine, but I got to know right now.
I'm a firm believer in that you do learn a lot more from your bad races and your DNFs than you learn from your really good races. Do you think if you would have performed well in that race that you would have been sober in those next 2 months?
Oh man, hard to say. It's hard to say because I also believe that God called me to become sober as well. So maybe not that quickly. I
Mm.
think eventually it's part of my story no matter what happens. I think that he's got that for me in my path just because of my mother's addiction, and I have a lot of addiction in my family tree all together. And I believe that I needed to be the person to break that pattern. God gave me that calling, but I don't think it happens that quick. I think that race was a realization. It was a in your face, like the results are
Yeah.
right here. Like it's data, like it's legitimate. You last year, you never run an ultra and you did better than you did after supposedly 1 year of training, knowing the course, knowing everything. Like the math ain't math, and big dog, you're going to have to fix something.
So was that the turning point then? Was the race the turning point in your sobriety?
Yeah, I drank that day too, right?
Right.
And like with my brothers were there, and like we went down to the camper and had a few drinks or whatever. But yeah, it's where my mental shift began, right? I didn't get that day, but it's where I was starting to plan that out. Because also, I'll let you know, if everybody's getting sober, you plan that out, because especially if you're going to try like a 30 days or a 60 days. And the reason my sobriety date is August 25th is because my birthday is October 26th. So it's like, all right, I can quit for 60 days, but I can still drink on my birthday. And but you're always trying to plan it, because you're like, oh, I got a birthday here, or for me, I got a cornhole tournament here. I don't know, how am I going to not drink at the cornhole tournament? I guess we'll figure that out, blah blah blah. Yeah, that was where my mind shifted. Was after that race, I really was confronted by myself and by the results of, you're doing something wrong and you need to figure it out. And it's not your legs. Your legs are fine.
Yeah.
So we need to figure this out. And also, if you look at pictures from mid-state year 2 and year 3, I looked like a plump little, I don't even know. I looked gross in year 2. And I look good. Like, I look put together. But in year 2, I was ugly, man. It was rough. And it all reflected, right? Your body's ugly. My mind was ugly. Things needed to be reorganized. And that was the turning point for me, though, mentally.
That's awesome. I don't want to miss this point that you said at the very beginning of, I guess, the story of Mid-State year 2. Now, Steve, I think you'd agree with this. You've probably seen it with people you worked with. You may have even seen it yourself. I've seen it in my own running journey, as well as people I've worked with, is that you do a few races early on, and then once you've done a couple hard ones, you believe that you don't have to train with the same level of, I'm not going to say intensity, I'm going to say focus. I feel,
Yeah.
some of the intention, that's probably a better word here, because a lot of times when we get maybe around year 2 or year 3, we've done a few of these, and the intention and the focus is a lot different, because we're like, oh yeah, this is what we do. It's not a big deal. And it comes to eat your lunch. And I think you don't have to have an addiction issue in this point to actually have that same reality for a lot of runners. So I think if you are new to the sport and you've experienced something like that, it's more than likely a lack of intention or focus in your training that has resulted in a performance that has shocked you in year 2 or year 3. So I didn't want to let that slide, because I don't want anybody hearing this thinking it's only related to those who are dealing with addiction. But you've seen that too, right, Steve?
Oh, it happened to me in the Black Mountain Ultra. That was like my first trail race, but it was after a couple 50Ks, and I thought I was hot stuff and went out and ran that and told my friend, I was like, what's a 50K? Little did I know it was 5,500 feet of elevation gain and in the middle of the heat. And I was like, yeah, I'll be over like 4.5 hours, 4 hours, 45 minutes. No big deal. We can go grab lunch. That thing kicked my butt. I was down and it was like 7.5 hours. And I was like, dude, just go get lunch by yourself, because I don't know if I'm going to make it home. So I think it is. It's like around year 2, you need one race to kick your butt. And then you're like, oh, and then that's where I started coaching. I was like, hey, I got to get better at this. And this is where I got to learn all that stuff. So that's really kicked everything off, was getting my butt kicked. So it was great.
Yeah. So then year 3, excuse me. We want to now end this Mid-State with a little bit more excitement. Year 3, you ran this race. You finished 3rd overall. You did not get the assist. I paused there because I'm still very happy with your results, but I'm like, oh, come on, man. But you did get 3rd place, which is a huge accomplishment out of that race. Again, the people in that race that keep going for that long are really putting in some freaking elevation in that time. So tell us about that. What went so well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things here, and yeah, the 3rd place out there, it's tough, and the race was really tough that year. Not that it matters, but it's different, right? Different conditions, the mud, rain, things that never happened before, at least that I'd seen. But I think the big thing was, one, that I trained intentionally, like what Steve was talking about. I really cared about the race. I was also sober. There was something that happened when I was sober that I wanted to prove that sobriety was changing how well I ran too, which maybe it wasn't. We could even grant that it wasn't, but it did change my mindset into making my training more focused and intentional, like we were talking about. Because I wanted to prove to people that, I remember at Barn Creek in November, right? I'd only been sober 2 months. And I was talking my story, a little bit of sobriety. And this one guy there, Brandon Johnson, he's a good friend of mine, but I didn't know him at the time. I didn't know this guy at all. He's a good runner. And he's, oh, I'm a beer salesman. Like, it fuels my family and this and that. He was talking it up. I like to drink my beers. And it was like, I don't know if it was crap talk, but it was a little angled. And I remember in that moment, it was early in the race, and him and Dusty were talking about running 150 miles and this and that. And I remember I was like, I'm going to put this in my cookie jar, that you said this, like, I'm going to make it. And I knew he was going to run good. He'd run 100 miles out there the year before. And I was like, because now I want to beat you for another reason. You know what I mean? And this is pivotal in backyard races. If I was to tell anybody, is like putting little things in your cookie jar that keep you going when things get dark. But anyway, so the training was intentional, things like that. But I think the big thing was I came in with no expectation, right? The years before, I thought I was BA. I thought I was a top dog when I wasn't even close. And this last year, I was like, I'm okay with whatever result. I want to put in an ultimate effort for me, for Jesus, for people that support me. And I'm going to just go out there and I'm going to be really grateful for everything that is going on with the race. It only happens once a year. Like, I looked at this race as a bigger picture than it's just like the loop or anything. Like, this happens once a year. We all get to come together and do this thing and restart every loop. Every loop was feeling like, I feel goosebumps right now, like special to me, just being there. Like, it was like this, and I could go there anytime. I could hit up Becca tomorrow and be like, hey, can I come run some loops? And she would let me. But the race is something different. And I was finding myself multiple times throughout the race just being really grateful to be in it. No matter how I felt, no matter what pace I was at. And this was early, 30 miles in, 60 miles in. And I remember I was somewhat emotional, just happy emotional that I was there. And I think that was really life changing for me. Like, when we talked about the low changed my running, this changed it in the opposite direction, where ultimate like gratitude throughout this race made me love ultra running last year. Like, it made me love it. It made me love it so much that I signed up for something like Cocodona, right? Something that I thought was years and years away. But I was like, I really want to experience this as much as possible without overloading. If you overload a bunch of races, you can get desensitized, I think, as well. But that was the change, was pure gratitude. I didn't want to beat anybody. I didn't think I was a who's who. I was encouraging people while I was out there. I always say, bring others with you. They say, if you want to run fast, go alone. If you want to run far, go together. And I believed that. And I kept people. I mean, there's a few people that told me, like, you kept me in the race longer. And it's, hey, it's just one more. And I would tell everybody, if you did the last one, you can do the next one. And that's what I told myself too, right? If I'm telling somebody else, because we were at a point where we were practically exercising the things that we're saying now. And that's a huge thing in loops races. If you did the last one, you can do the next one. That's a mantra that I'll tell anybody. But it was gratitude changed that race for me. Like I said, along with training, along with sobriety, along with really getting into my faith, like, those things are what drive me. But then being fully just grateful for what was out there. Like, the course itself was a platform for me to show love and to show progression in what this thing is that has been driving me for a couple of years that I hadn't really found yet. And Midstate gave me that in year 3.
I'm going to ask a kind of odd question here. It just came to me to think about this. How did you view yourself in year 3 versus how you saw yourself in year 2?
I saw myself as as just a faithful Christian trying to, like, a good time, almost is all it was. Like, I just wanted to be, like, show kindness, show love. Like, I wanted to be the environment. I wanted to be what Mid-State community is. And the longer I'm in the race, the longer I can provide that, right? The longer that I can give that to the people in the race still. And so that, and in year 2, I was me, and that's it. You know what I mean? And that's where it was, how far is Dylan going to go? Where in year 3, Dylan was just a vessel. Like, there was so much more involved in who I was in year 3 than there was in year 2, where it was just me. Like, I'm the guy with the tattoos that was in the military that has a story that I can go farther than you. Like, just these egotistical things. Although I wasn't, like, portraying that on social media or anything like that. But that's who I was. That's who I viewed myself as. I mean, like I said, to say I got blackout drunk the week before and then thought I could do well at the race should tell almost anybody what I thought of myself. Lowly on the inside, but on the outside, I obviously thought that I was invincible.
Jeff, you probably agree that almost everybody to a person, their best race comes from when they lift those expectations and give over to the race themselves and kind of like, hey, whatever happens, happens. That's usually when people have their best races.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's when they have a complete element of gratitude and when they posture themselves with a real level of humility for the experience. And they, I always tell people, don't take a mile for granted. Even 1 mile is a long way. And so for those who are just trying to run for the first time, give yourself some grace. You are running 1 mile. That's a huge deal. And so instead of peacocking around, if you come into something with a little bit more humility, you won't take that race for granted. You won't take that experience for granted. You'll stay intentional, you'll stay focused, and you'll lift other people up. And that's when I said, how did you see yourself? It's like, there's this prideful Dylan in year 2, and there's this humble Dylan in year 3 is what I'm picking up from what you were talking about. I was just curious if you saw yourself that way or not. But we want to talk about training for mid-state and the reason we want to talk about training for mid-state is because of what you said about in your email to us, is that you're training for Cocodona also, and that the two are similar. And I pause there to say that again, that the training that you are doing for Cocodona and the training that you are doing for mid-state, you view as to be very similar. And we don't disagree. And the reason we don't disagree, but I'm saying it because those who are listening are thinking, I don't think I could ever do Cocodona, but maybe I could do this mid-state thing because it's a 20-minute loop. Maybe I can do that. And what Steve wants you to hear, if you're thinking that, is that you could also run Cocodona, right, Steve?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a lot of
Because
elevation, but
it's
just one
all
step at a
things
time.
200, Steve.
Exactly.
That's right.
One step at a
It's
time.
all 200. Now, so Dylan, for you, how are you training in a way that is for both Cocodona and mid-state? Like, what are you doing that you see to be the same?
Yeah, the obvious things are elevation training, strength training, and trail training. Sometimes people can neglect trail training, which myself included for a long time. It's really easy for me to run out my door. I can do 20 miles out the door, right? I can do 5 miles out the door. To go out to the trail to build like your ankle stability, foot stability, things of this nature, they have to occur for both of those races. Also, I think that how you view mid-state can skew how you think it's similar to Cocodona, right? I don't view mid-state as a 1 mile loop, right? To me, it's a race. How long can you continue to go? And Cocodona is similar in that fashion. Yes, it's going to end, but the distance of 250 miles doesn't really seem like that. And then to flip it over, where mid-state is 1 mile, if you can break Cocodona down to 1 mile at a time, you can continue through it. So I think that sometimes people get caught up in the distance itself or the race itself, when in reality, every race is the same. You know what I mean? Just keep moving forward. If you want to train for elevation or desert or things like that, then yeah, you should, if you can, if it's available to you. But in reality, like, it's making the race digestible to whatever that is to you. Like, everybody is different. I like to break my things down into backyard loops a lot of the time. If I have 16 miles left, like, I'm like, okay, that's 4 backyard loops. You know what I mean? Oh, that's not too much. But when it gets harder, it could be 1 mid-state loop. You know what I mean? That's just 1 mile. And so that's where I think that they're similar, although obviously much different if you look at them big picture. But when I take it mile at a time, it's just getting it done, continuing to move forward, and being grateful to be out there. What an opportunity it is to run in both of those platforms.
That's a fantastic
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, I think I agree. The best thing that you said is just breaking it down to where it's digestible. Because you tell somebody to run in a 250-mile race, they say first it's usually, how do you do that? And then my answer is just one step at a time, right? Like that's really in the simplest form. That's all it is. But I have 2 clients that are running it this year, and my biggest thing to them is, don't think about the whole 250 miles. We're going to work aid station to aid station, and we're putting stuff into training to make sure we can take care of the first day, to make sure we can take care of the second day, aid station to aid station, and being specific that way. Because if you try to think about the whole 250 miles, that's when your brain goes, oh, I'm only at mile 100. I have 150 left. There's no way possible. That's
Yeah, and that
usually what
happened to
happens.
me Tennessee Mile year 2, actually. So year 2 was just terrible for me, anything that has to do with running. It's just I was doing the 40 and I quit at 24 hours. But because what happened is I was going for the course record out there, 107 miles, which is so attainable when you look at it on paper, and then you get out there and it's really hard. Especially because you're alone, right? Because Tennessee Mile, everybody has it's 40 hours flat out on the loop, as many as you can do. Same loop as mid-state, folks, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. Anyways, I got 8 hours in and I had put in a lot of effort. And I realized that I had 32 more hours.
Yeah.
And that mentally defeated me. I was done right then. Yes, I did 16 more hours of running, but mentally, I could not wrap my head around how much effort I'd put in, knowing that there was 4 times more effort to do. And so that's where I really learned how to make things digestible. And this works in life too, folks, like one day at a time. Like I said, we can circle everything back to sobriety or your faith. But if you got through today, you can get through, or if you got through yesterday, you get through today. And if you got through today, you can get through tomorrow. It's something I tell people, they come to me for sobriety advice. But that's the same with running and the same with your life when it's tough. If you got through the day before or something else that was hard, you can also get through this hard thing. But yeah, digestibility of a race is got to be number one. Everyone love it. I struggle with my stomach for a long time, but really just working like how far is the next aid station? My girl, like 7.5. Okay, no, what's planned? What's my pace for 7.5? You know what I mean? What does that look like for nutrition? Get it packed. Let's roll, and that's it. And it doesn't really matter if you're at 21 miles or 73. My next section is 7 miles. That's what matters.
Yeah, so you said that make the race digestible. You said also that you need to train on trails. You mentioned strength training, and you also mentioned elevation. So what are you doing to get your elevation in?
Really just my local trails. Like I can get 4 to 6 miles on them with about 1,000 feet, which isn't a ton. And I'll do some hill repeats and stuff too.
That's enough.
I rely a lot on my elevation training. A lot is just my strength training. I've never been a guy that's going to go find like the biggest hill and go up and down it all day long. I think I get my joints get torn up doing that if I was to do that over and over and over again. And yeah, it might happen in the race too, but like you can grit through most of that. But the strength training can strengthen those things without getting like that hard pounding over and over again. It's also just hard for me to find a big hill around here. That Mid-State Hill, it's something special. But yeah, strength training I think is huge. I'll hit the stair climber a couple times a week, especially like in these next couple weeks. I'll start doing that. But that's really where I'm getting a lot of the elevation training from.
I would suggest
Steve, you
you
were
do
saying
like
that's enough, right?
I was gonna say I would suggest you do 1 or 2 days a week, as many hills as you possibly can. That's my
Okay.
suggestion. Because
Steve, what does that mean?
so if that means spending 4 hours on the hill to get 5,000 feet in a day, then that's probably what you should do. Even if it's walking up, power hiking up and walking down, because you're gonna be spending a lot of time on your feet. And to be able to do that in addition to strength training, I think that'll bode very well for you. But there's
That sounds disgusting, Steve.
it sucks, and I do it every morning. Still sucks. Even though I'm not training for it. I'm on the wait list, but I'm still training like I'm going there. But yeah, it's just as many hill repeats as you can digest. That's what I would do. Especially if that's
Okay.
the only elevation you can get, then that's what I would do. Where you are not blown up to where you can't do the rest of your training. Maybe, like I said, that's why you do 1 or 2 days a week. And I would aim for 20,000 feet of gain a week. That's about what I'm trying to get my clients up to for the probably their peak weeks.
Yeah, that's solid.
So I'm going to just, for those listening, trying to make sense of that, Steve, why are you targeting 20,000 a week?
Because the race is at 32,000. So it's probably we're not elite. So we don't have enough time to get out there and do 32,000 for the week. So what I try to do is break down the total mileage for the race and put that across the entire week, plus or minus 10, 15%. So if I had a 50K with 5,000 feet of gain, if I could get 5,000 for the entire week, then that's what I'm doing. And then that way you're just compressing that all down into one effort during the race. And after a proper taper, you should be good to go.
Just wanted everybody to know why you were doing it, Steve. I agree
why
with
I do it.
100%. I think it's good.
No, you're good.
We both coach, and sometimes we share our war stories. So, all right. So back to Mid-State real quick, though. We mentioned that it's 20-minute laps, and there's an intermission loop. Excuse me. There's an intermission of roughly 20 minutes after 12 hours. So we want to talk about two different things. You're going to run a loop and you have 20 minutes to do it, which means you're probably going to come in around 17 minutes, maybe 17 and a half. Most people, is my guess, because they're trying to give themselves enough time. What is the goal in that 2 minutes that you're trying to do before you get back in the corral? What are you trying to do every lap?
Yeah, and you hit mine time on the head. I'm a 17-17-30 guy. That's right I am a model of consistency when it comes to the backyard. Once I find my pace, I'm there plus or minus a minute, unless something goes crazy, like I need a shoe change or a bathroom break, things like that. But I'm going to hit my backyard pace is 50 minutes. You're going to find me there between 49 and 51 every single loop. And for Mid-State 17-30, you're going to have me between 17 and 18 minutes every single loop. Because when you get down in the chair, like you're talking about that time, I want that to look the exact same. I don't want it to be 3 minutes one time and then 1 minute the next time, because like you're saying, like, what are you doing in that time? Also, that's very organized. So we could call this the blueprint to Mid-State, right? My blueprint to Mid-State. And I developed a nutrition plan, but the first thing you do is get in there, get your feet up, get a hot or a cold towel on the head, on the back. Cooling is huge in mid-state. And this last year it rained, so not the same. But if you're going to that race in June, middle of June in Tennessee, it's likely going to be 90 degrees, 95 degrees. There's a full canopy throughout the route, which, oh, that's nice. There's no sun. So, yeah, but it's 85% humidity under there. The wind isn't coming in here. None of that stuff's happening. So be prepared. Like, it's going to be a sweat fest. And so first thing is get cool. But I do a lot of hat changes, and I got a little bit of beef for this. People are like, how many hats does that guy have? I guess on the live stream, I had 3 different hats. I take one off. It goes in the ice cooler. When we go back out, we put a different one on. The next time that next hat is cold. And it's just one more way to continue to cool yourself. So first I go into cooling, feet go up. Next is eating. I was doing a gel the first loop, just a gel. The second loop, I was doing a waffle and fruit. Usually, maybe it was just fruit. Maybe it was just waffle. And then the third loop, the third loop, I would do a hard food. So whether this was a quesadilla, I had some avocado wraps, I had oatmeal, I had soup, and then I just repeated that exact cycle because I'd had problems in the past digesting food. Like the first year, I ate Uncrustables every hour on the hour. I ate 15 Uncrustables and I didn't have a single bowel movement. So carrying around 15 extra Uncrustables was probably not doing any good for me in the race, but I didn't know what to do. I'm going to drink Hoist because that's what Chad drank. And I'm going to eat Uncrustables because I don't know what else to pack and I don't have a crew. That's where we were at. And year 2, I think I overate and I got like the distended belly look. So I think I over carb loaded. And I was just struggling, just like sloshy, big stomach. And it was really uncomfortable, things like that. So I'm like, how do I figure this out? And that's where year 3, I was like, I'm going to go small, medium, large, essentially with the foods, which I then think allowed my body to process things in the similar way and like normal bowel movements. And I never got fat looking. You'll see a lot of people, they get fat during an ultra, and it's not because they're gaining weight from eating. It's because like their body's holding on to it, or they're overloading on something, or they're missing out on sodium. Something is happening that's not going right. And that never happened throughout the race. So that's happening, the nutrition. And then just preparing anything for what might be coming. If I'm going to change shoes the next loop, we're going from double knot to single knot, right? This is little stuff, but we're talking seconds equal minutes. And in a race like that, where you have 2.5 minutes per loop, it's quick. It's a pit stop in there. It really is. And so things like that, making sure lamps like headlights or waist lights are ready to go before the night, making sure poles are good. In the beginning with the mud, I knew it was going to be muddy, so I actually brought out horse brushes, and like my crew was brushing out the bottom of my shoes. And it's, oh, that's smart. Everybody's like, that's smart. But then it's 4 steps into the next loop there completely. So I don't think it was really doing anything. But for a little while, people thought I was a genius. And then that's what's going on typically in those 2.5 minutes for me every loop.
So let's pause there. Steve, did you hear all that food he's eating in an hour?
Yeah, that's a lot. And that's good fueling.
It is great. So it's interesting. I was trying to do the math in my head really, really quickly when you did it, because at first blush, if you will, when people are listening, they're like, okay, at every aid station, he's stopping, he's getting some food. That makes sense.
That's
But you're
every
doing it every
17
20
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's in a 20-minute window. And so you're actually getting probably 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. And so a lot of people are trying to figure out, how many carbs should I have in my race? And we're like, you should figure out a number around 45 to 60 grams of carbs in an hour. And they're not sure how they're going to pull it off. But you've come up with a system in mid-state where you're getting that number simply based off of the aid station frequency. And I think that's just an important thing for people to hear, is that is how you fuel yourself for the entire race. Because some people are going to do that race and think, maybe I'll eat every other lap, or I'll eat every third lap, or whatever it is, because they're used to doing it on the hour. I just think that is suicide.
Yeah, because keeping it consistently is keeping your metabolism and your processing, your gut just moving the entire time.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I think there's a difference with mid-state too, because of like your relative effort, right? The relative effort in 20 minutes at mid-state compared to, let's say, a regular backyard that's like a flat 4.1, like you're fine coming in with 8 minutes left and eating only in that time period. You know what I mean? And you probably don't need 80 grams of carbs every hour at something like that, depending on, like I said, your relative effort. But at mid-state with the climbing, like you are burning a lot of calories really fast. So like I learned you have to put it back in, and you got to put it back in efficiently. And we ate every loop. Me and my buddy next to me, Levi, like we knew we had to eat every loop. The year before we overate every loop. So it's like, how do we make it work. And I felt like that ladder process of, I just created that in my head. I was like, I feel like if you just start small, then medium, then large, and then dial back down, like this seems like it could work. And
Mhm.
it was fantastic.
We had Mark Dowdle on a couple episodes ago, who's becoming the new king of backyards. He'll be at Biggs this year. He had the same type of system where he came in every time the same thing. He did the exact same thing every time in his secret tent that he hides from everybody. But he pulled back the curtain a little bit for us. But yeah, I think keeping it consistent also keeps it easy, right? Because you know you're going to do the exact same thing every time you come in. So I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get bored in backyard style races. I love the boredom of it, right? Like I love it. I love the monotonous, like it's just logistical. And once you can figure those logistics out, like you can really do well. I also tell people like running a backyard is easier than most of everybody's everyday life, because you have to go here, you have to talk to this person, you have to do that. Like this, all I have to do is eat, drink, and run a loop. Like that is it. This is the simplest thing that I'm going to do probably for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Let's just be happy that this is easy. All I got to do is eat, drink, and run. This is a
That's
blessing in
fantastic.
here.
Yeah, I
And
like
that's
that.
kind of, I tell people that out on the loop. This is the easiest thing that I do. Everything else, I have a regular job, a small business, a family. Like that stuff requires a lot of attention and a lot of this requires very little attention, just doing it over and over again. So I always help make it like, what is the army phrase is KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing simpler than a backyard unless you complicate it. It's up to you to complicate the race. And we didn't talk about pacing either. I don't know if you wanted to get into that. And I don't know if you guys have run backyards, but pacing is huge. Just like finding your marks of what time you're going to be at said mark, and just hitting, like I said, at night, that's all I'm doing is, okay, where are we at? What's the time? And that's it. That's all I'm thinking about. And every loop is the same. And I'm 15 seconds behind. Okay, we'll speed up on this flat right here. It's like easy stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because what we've learned, and even interviewing other guests who've done backyards as well, is that a lot of people who've never run one are thinking in terms of what's their average pace for the entire lap.
Yeah.
But what those who've got experience are doing, they're identifying different points on the course that they are going to be able to recognize day or night and understand what is their time at that spot. And that's how they begin to understand their pace for the entire loop, if you will. I mean, that's what they tend to target. So if there's a section on that lap, then they focus on trying to make sure they're in that window of time in that section, and then work their way around that lap. Is what we've learned as well from everyone. So it sounds like you do the exact same thing, which is why you're pretty successful at them.
Mhm.
Pretty successful. Yeah, I'm no
Speaking of,
Mark Dowdle.
not yet, but maybe you never know, because why not?
Yeah.
So on that note of being successful, you're doing Midstate this year. What's the goal?
Oh, just have fun, man. Like I said, we're gonna be 6 weeks post Cocodona, so I need to make sure my
Mm.
body's healthy first and things like that. Stacking those two races could be not ideal for my body, so we got to be ensure that I'm healthy first. But I do plan to put in a good effort. I will be out there providing like what the community is supposed to provide at a minimum, as long as I'm not injured. At least one intermission. But it's so much fun to get to intermission, and like I said, getting through the night is the hard part. But if we're healthy, if things are working the right way, getting to morning is very special. Seeing that sunrise is very special at Midstate, along with the second intermission, right? You're 24 hours in. It gets rough out there. And like you mentioned, 100 miles with 33,000 feet of gains a lot. It also takes 33 hours to get to
Yeah.
100 miles, which is a really long time. And
It
that's
does.
something that messes people up at Midstate, especially people that run a lot of ultras. They're like, okay, I've been out here 20 hours. I'm 66 miles in. They're so worried about the mileage. And if you're a veteran out there like myself, all you care about is the 20 minutes that you're in,
Yeah.
and same
Yeah.
with the backyard. All you care about is the hour that you're in. The mileage does not matter. And I think if you set too many mileage goals, you could really hurt yourself in the race. But Midstate, I have never done 100 out there, not even at Tennessee Mile 40 Hour. I did 92 this last year. So I'd also like to get a Midstate buckle. And I'm wondering if I approach it with a 100-mile mindset, if that would help. But I also hate that idea for me. Like it sounds really stupid. I would never tell anybody to do that. And I'm over here like
Don't do that.
contemplating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Thank you for the reassurance.
Yeah, don't do that at all. And it sounds like, Steve, that he's making Cocodona a training run for Midstate.
That's what it seems
No,
like.
I just can't not run Midstate. Like
Right.
that's
Well,
just the thing.
one quick question on Cocodona, because we want to talk about Lovit. We have a couple other things we want to talk about. I know we're flying through time here. For Cocodona, how do you visualize the race going for yourself? I'm sure like any new race, you've scouted the websites, you've looked at YouTube, you've done all this research. Everybody does it, right? And then you go out on your run, you walk out your door and run 20 miles, you go on a trail, whatever, and you find a place, and you're visualizing yourself in Arizona. So when you visualize yourself in that race, how do you see it going?
Slow and smooth. Really
I
though,
love it.
like,
I
That's the way
love
to
that.
go.
yeah,
That's
it
right.
has to be that way. I think that if I want to be successful, and I'd really love a top 10 out there, it'd be crazy to break through into a top 10. I'm really a nobody, and I'm grateful for finishing 100%. I'm grateful to even to
Mm,
hit the start line at that race. Already I sold out in 10 minutes. I'm already lucky to even get there. Yes, I just spent a couple bucks, couple shekels, but I'm already grateful. But I'd really like to break in and just
nice.
be noticed as somebody that's not somebody. Because I had this thing I said, like, why not us? Why not the people that work the 40-hour a week jobs that maybe also have a small business
Mm,
that no, they're on nobody's who's list? Like, why can't we be in the mix running for those people, which is 99% of every ultra runner, right? Yeah, we follow all the big guys, but wouldn't we love to see somebody that's not one of them do? And I think that we're always, you see somebody come in like even a Dan Green last year. Yeah, he's got a bunch of 100-mile success, but that guy works at a shoe store and nobody
mm.
really knew him, never won a 200, and then just goes out there and crushes the thing. Like, what a great story, And it was expected to be, you got your Max Joe lifts and your Courtney's and your this and your that's, and where are they at? I don't know. Dan Green's here though. He's pretty cool. And now he's sponsored and he's elite and he's a who's who, and good for him. He earned it. But I like the why not us thing. I like breaking through, but it's got to be smooth and it's got to be slow. And I think that comes with being intentional through the aid stations and not getting stuck there. Is a lot of things people talk about, and eating a lot. I think you
Mhm.
got to eat everywhere. And if you stop at an aid station, it's okay to eat a little bit of food there and then continue on. I think don't rush to the finish. It's 250 miles. You have to understand, if you can move at a 20-minute per mile pace average, like, you're going to do pretty good. You're going to do pretty good. I'd like to finish under 72 though. That's what my pace plan is, for under 72. So we'll see how
Ooh,
long we can
That's
hold
good.
on
moving
to it.
fast.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
yeah.
moving fast.
Yeah.
I'd
That's
also
awesome.
try to determine like what your sleep strategy is going to be going in.
Yeah, it's just hard because how do you know, right? Like, because what if I
Exactly.
don't sleep as good the night before than I should have?
You
You know what I
probably
mean? And
won't.
this and that. Right. I think I love it. Oh, it was, we'll talk about it, but it was so bad the night before. Anyways, but yeah, so sleep, I usually find that, like, I start to get sleepy around like 30 hours.
Mm,
And that's why I did Tennessee Mile this last year, the 40-hour. Like, I needed to find like that threshold,
Mhm.
and that's a race that starts at 4 p.m. So really, I've been up for, I don't know, 12 hours almost when it starts, and then go into the race. So it was like really finding that sleep deprivation thing and how long can you just move through this
mm.
thing. And so that went pretty well though. Like, a 20-minute nap woke me up like perfect, and I was still moving fine with the leg. So hopefully a few 20-minute naps is the plan, maybe 5, maybe 6 of those, just depending on how we feel.
Yeah,
Sounds like trail naps are in your future.
Yeah,
exactly.
most
Looking
likely.
forward to watching you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll see you out there.
Hopefully if I get in.
Steve is hoping
Steve's
he is
getting in.
not currently. Yeah, there you go, Steve. He would love to get in.
We're manifesting.
So that's what I'm talking about, Steve. You're going. He's a guy. So let's talk about Love It 100. We got a few minutes here. You ran that on February 21st, which was just like 2 weeks ago, apparently. You got fourth place overall. You ran it in 21 hours, 43 minutes, and 6 seconds. The website says about it, you have to have ankles of steel and an iron will. And so it takes place in Arkansas, I believe,
Yep.
in I don't know how to say this, the Wichita
Well, I
National
thought it was
Forest.
Lake Wachita, but then I found out from
Oh,
people that live there, it's Washita.
Washita National Forest. It's described as very hilly. The total climb is between 100 and 200 feet per mile. This is what made me insane about their website. I'm going to be very transparent here. It said that it's 5,000 to 8,000 feet of elevation gain in 50 miles. That's a pretty big range of 10,000 to 16,000 feet for 100 miles. So, from your estimates, like what is the actual elevation gain of that race?
Yeah, so and this was so hard to find. So my buddy Corey sends me what Google says. Google says like 18 to 20, right? And then I look at their website, it says 11, okay? And then I download the GPX file, it says like 8,500. So I'm like, dude, I have no idea what to train.
Neither do they.
And
Yeah.
none of it was correct. My watch clocked 15.4, which so close to that 16,000, that high end of the number that you had over there. Yeah, 15,000, I think 400 was what it ended up being. It felt like it, I would say. There was tough climbs.
Yeah. So tell us about the race.
The race, yeah, I had big plans. I wanted to run sub 20, which in reality, like I knew like that was very far
It's
fetched.
aggressive
Yeah. But
for that one.
but
You're
I
close.
understood like a 12-minute mile and things like that. Like it was possible if we feel good, if things go well. And it was cool. Like only 2 people have run under 20 hours there. And that's how I knew the goal was so far fetched. Bronco Billy and Carl Meltzer or Speed Go. Let's just get 2 guys with nicknames are the only guys that have run under 20 hours. So it was going to be a tough task no matter what. I went out there, I was running good. 14 miles in, I got sloshy stomach, and I was experimenting with carbs in my water. I don't usually drink any carbs, and I done it in training a little bit and stuff like this, but not with the same amount of effort, which I learned then is very, you got to do it. We're learning. And I was drinking the carbs and water and didn't have any just regular water besides aid stations, which is not enough of regular water. So I had 500 milliliters of Element, right, in one, and then 500 milliliters of 2 scoops of Scratch plus water in the other one. And I started with just that. So 14 miles in, and I was eating. So 14 miles in, I had sloshy, carby stomach right off the rip because I overloaded on carbs just right off the rip. So I start getting the sloshy stomach, and then it goes into like lower abdominal cramps at like mile 16, like early, right? Things that are like to where I couldn't actually physically run when the cramps would hit. So we're dealing with that, feeling like I have to poop, but don't actually. And we start to climb like Bear Mountain around like 20-ish miles, somewhere in there. And like now, like every like 4 or 5 miles, like I'm getting off the trail to try to poop. Like this is early and I'm having these cramps, but I'm still moving, you know what I mean? And I'm still actually under this 12-minute pace. And I'm like, but we got to. So I tried to text my girlfriend. I brought my phone. I don't want to use it. I didn't listen to any music. Like I train with music and phone and stuff, but when I race, I almost never have headphones in. And I told a guy out there, I was like, you have to experience it fully to do well, in my opinion. This is when I do my best, is when I really immerse myself into the race. And also he's like, oh, what if you get in a tough spot? I like to listen to this and that. I'm like, yeah, I like to work through that tough spot without an external thing. You know what I mean? Like I was addicted to alcohol. I use that to work. I don't use anything anymore. I don't want anything helping me get through the tough times besides me, for the most part. So, and he's, oh wow, like you're really wise. And I'm like, all right, buddy, like I gotta go. And sometimes you're like, dude, I just can't tell any more stories right now. My stomach hurts. But anyway, so we get to 35, which is the turnaround point. So it goes out one way 35 and comes back, and then you go out a different way 15 and come back. That's the course essentially. So we get to 35, and between aid stations, I think 26 and a half, I told my girlfriend, like, I need Imodium and I need Tums, like 100%. I need these things time now. And so we get that stuff. The Tums settles the stomach down. We're still sloshy. The Imodium kind of controls the bowel movements a little bit. So like we're doing that, and that's much better. But I probably had in total 70 miles of sloshy stomach. And I never really dealt with this that much. But like I can physically hear my stomach. Like it's so bad. But like at the same time, what are your options? Oh, slow down and quit, or do you just figure out how to move through this thing? And that's where I was at. I'm running this race to prove to myself that I can run like Cocodona. Like what if this happens 14 miles into that race? Am I just going to quit at 14 miles or 35 miles or 70 miles? No. So we're going to have to figure out how to move through this. In worst case scenario, this happens for 250 miles. We don't know. You know what I mean? But you got to know you can work through it. And we talked about that earlier, but knowing that you can get through things is really important in ultra, and everybody deals with it, right? The ankle pain comes, it's there for 2 miles, then it's gone. Then it goes to the right knee. Then the right knee pain's there for a mile and a half, then it's gone. We all know that it's going to go away, but sometimes we allow it to let us stop. We allow the mind to win. And in reality, almost all the things we encounter in ultra will go away eventually. Like in the race, they will go away almost all the time. And that includes your leg soreness, and that includes your mindset too. If you can fix it, you can work through a lot of things. So we got through there. I was running good. I held the sub 12-minute pace for 57 miles. So not bad. Not bad. That's a start to getting 2000 someday with the elevation that I thought was maybe 8,000, maybe 11,000. Like really, it's blind elevation at Lovit. I hope nobody watches this podcast that goes so they can get the same experience of it's pretty much blindfolded on elevation. Good luck, buddy. Like you'll figure it out when you get out there. It was rocky and rooty. I fell down 2 times, which not bad. Both within the first 40 miles. And also like by mile 45, when you go up Bear Mountain, back down, and then back across it, I was at 8,000 in the first 40 miles. So it's heavy on the elevation,
Front
like
side.
in the front. Yeah.
Mm.
Anyways, yeah, we moved through. I ran good, and I was in like sixth or seventh for a long time, maybe eighth. And then people started to fall off. They maybe started a little too fast. And then at one point I was in third, and this guy, Ryan, he said he's run sub 2000s before, and he seemed like a good guy. He was really nice. But he told me at one point, we were like 90 miles in. He's like, hey, at the next aid station at the top of the hill, I'm going to call my wife. You go ahead and take the third place. I don't care about the trinkets, which this kind of was the nicest thing he said and also the meanest thing he'd said, because like I want to earn it. And
Yeah.
we'd run together since about mile 75. Like we were back and forth this whole, I passed him at 67, which I was running a downhill gravel. I bombed this thing, idiot. I bombed it at 8:30s for 4 miles at mile 67. This was a bad idea. And I ended up getting like respiratory issues, which I talked to my buddy Eric Kinley, and he's, yeah, when I overdo a portion of a race, like it'll become like, I think it's called pulmonary something something. But like I became short of breath the rest of the race after this, like 70 miles on, like any hard running turned into like hard breathing, and my heart rate was fine. Like we're pushing 130 heart rate, but like I can't breathe. And but it's okay. Like we're working through that. I just figured I'm tired. Like we're 70 miles into an ultra. Like it is what it is. But Ryan tells me that he's going to give me it. He doesn't care. And I was like, okay, that's nice. But I also wanted him to earn it. You know, or I wanted me to earn it, and I wanted him to earn it. I'm going to beat you. So like at one point I passed gap him, and then we start climbing, and he was a way better climber than me. And this guy was climbing past me at mile 95, 94, 95. We had a 150-foot climb at mile 94, and then 450 feet in 95, which also run Lovit. This is diabolical, absolutely diabolical.
It's rough at
Huge,
the end.
huge climb, switchbacks, rocky. And he passed me, went halfway up the climb, stopped, waited for me. We did the rest of the climb together. I'm like, dude, you need to take third place. You should have been finished by now. Or like not really, but I was exaggerating, because like he'd earned it at this point. He could have ran faster than me. He wanted me to get the little wood thing. Like, dude, go get the wood thing. I'd rather have nothing in an earned fourth place than a non-earned third place and get the wood thing. You know what I mean? That's where I was at with that. And he bombed down, and he took third place. But yeah, it was really rocky. And I told the lady at the end too, it's like, as soon as you climbed up, you're like, okay, now I can go downhill. But some of it was so rocky that the downhill you're not hitting it very fast. You're still struggling for 11s and stuff, because like you're really having to watch where you're going, and you're stutter stepping and things like that, which I think is good. I think it's good to know. I think they talk a lot about that. The Cocodona descents are somewhat similar in certain areas. That was something that you're like, okay, I'm going to go 450 up. It means I'm going to go 450 down, and you can make up for it. In reality, that's not true for most trail races, you know, and if they describe them as rocky, they're usually pretty rocky. It was. Yeah, it was.
So we are just about out of time, because I know Steve has a hard stop here in just a minute, but so we're not going to get to all the other questions we have about Lovit. So what I want to do though is I'm going to ask you one other question though to wrap this up. With everything that you've done in ultra running thus far, and even with the races you've got on the horizon that you're going to be doing, what is one thing that has stood out about the sport and about your experience in it that you just wish others could experience? It's a hard question.
No, yeah, I just want to make sure I answer it correctly, because I think there's like a ton of answers to this. I
One thing.
think it's being willing to suffer is the best part of ultra running. Allowing yourself to understand that you can suffer, and that it's going to make you a better person. Like choosing to do it rather is going to make the things that become unchosen so much easier. And a lot of people don't have that outlet that ultra running gives us, that when we go through hard times, it's easier for ultra runners. When you lose your job, or when you maybe lose a loved one, it is still hard. But for some reason, because we were willing to choose the suffering over and over again in a different environment, it allows you to understand that life is bigger than what you're going through right now. And it, for some reason, eases the pain of the unchosen sufferings. You know, it's there's something about certain human beings, I think, that grow from stressors. They describe this in plants too. Cactus is one. I think they're called like extra mites or extra phytes, something like that. Extremophytes, something like that. And they need the stressor to then like bring out certain growth adapters that they can only have with the stressors. So if you give them the right amount of stuff, they can never like grow the way that they're supposed to. And I think that humans, or some humans, work in the same way, whereas we need to put ourselves through like the chosen sufferings so that we can learn and adapt how to get through the unchosen sufferings the correct way. And like myself before, even if I was choosing, like I wasn't choosing the right suffering, and then my unchosen suffering, I was using alcohol to cope. I was using the wrong thing to cope. Where now, if we feel down, we can go for a run, or we can get a lift, or we can just literally recall the hard time we went through at an ultra. And for some reason, that brings us peace and comfort. And that's what ultra running gives people. And just the willingness to suffer, to choose the suffering, is the greatest thing about ultra running.
And we have gone full circle because
Yeah,
that's how we started choosing the pain.
exactly.
That makes sense.
Good job.
It's everything.
Uh,
Good job.
Fantastic, man. That's a great answer. Dylan, thank you. Seriously, like I said, we do have to wrap up and everything, but this has been a really good conversation. The time flies when the conversation is very engaging. And I kept looking at the clock thinking, holy cow,
Yeah,
like
we're not
this has
going to make
been incredible. And
it.
yeah, we're never going to make through everything we want, but that's okay because your story is incredible. You have just a good heart. You're very intentional about others, and it's just comes out. And I like the new Dylan. I'll
Mhm.
just be honest. I like the year 3 Dylan versus the year 2 Dylan. The year 3 Dylan, I think, is somebody that when you look in the mirror, you can probably think to yourself, all right, I kind of like who I am more than I did before. And for that, just kudos on just your journey, on your faith, on your sobriety, on every step you've taken, which none of it's easy. And so I know we've glossed over a lot of that, but none of that's easy to work through. And I just appreciate your honesty and transparency. Thank you for just being who you are and being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, it's been super easy to talk to you guys. The questions were really perfect. I felt like they were alley oops for me to be able to slam dunk into my life experiences. And like I said, the goal for year 3 Dylan or year 4 Dylan would be just be better than year 3, right? And that's what we're all looking for, is how can we be better? But yeah, thank you guys for the platform. Thank you guys for the conversation. I'm always willing to do it again too. So if we have more stuff we need to cover, maybe a post Cocodona
Yeah,
probably might happen.
When you
absolutely.
win mid-state this year and you're top 10 at Cocodona, you're back, brother. That's all you got to do. I'm just kidding.
That's it.
We'll definitely talk to you again.
Mhm.
I think you have a great story and a great heart. I think I'd love to continue the conversation. So for those who though do want to follow along with you beforehand, what is the best way for them to keep up with you? I know you're on Instagram. I believe it's Dylan Abnormal or something to that effect. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Dylan_abnormal, or on Facebook it's Dylan R Led. But Instagram's probably your best route for finding my everything that I'm doing, like training wise, upcoming races, motivational stuff, faith stuff, sobriety stuff. Those kinds of, or if you want to reach out, like I really encourage people to reach out and be vulnerable with me. If you don't have a space to talk about something, I want to be that space for you if you need that. I think that sometimes people are afraid to reach out. Yeah, he's told a story, but I don't know if he could help me. I'd love to help anybody that's in need of any advice. And most of my messages are faith, fitness, and sobriety. But if you want to talk about what you're dealing with that's outside of those things, I'm down to have a conversation. Humans were built to be kind. Jesus was kind. And I want people to know that don't be afraid to reach out, be vulnerable, and respect each other.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about the ultra running community too.
Yeah.
And I agree. I know that I've listened to you on another podcast, Dirt and Vert, where you talked about that. I know that faith and fitness is very important to you, and being able to give people just free advice on even their fitness journey and stuff is something that you're very interested in as well. So if fitness, faith, sobriety, running, or anything just about being abnormal, please reach out to Dylan Abnormal on Instagram, and he will be more than happy to chat with you about that as well. It's Dylan, thank you again for being a guest on the show. For those who are listening, thank you for taking the time to download us, plugging us into your ears. And we just ask that you hit subscribe, all the usual things that you're supposed to be asked by a podcast guest, or host rather. And so just do those things or not. It doesn't matter. Just thank you for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you all again soon. See ya.